Good Friday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for Friday, November the 18th. We're going to be reading in the second chapter of Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 2, as we get into a chapter that's going to be written in a conditional formula, meaning there's going to be 4 if statements. The if you'll do this, that, and the other. Then there's going to be 2 then statements. Then you will receive this type of benefit from doing these things. And then verses 20 through 22 are going to have some concluding thoughts here in Proverbs chapter 2. So let me go ahead and get that text up on the screen for us here. Proverbs chapter 2. We're going to have if statements from verses 1 through 4. The first then statements will be in verse number 5. And we'll have another then statement in verse number 9. And as I mentioned, the conclusion will be verses 20 through 22. So reading together here in Proverbs chapter 2 and verse number 1. Proverbs 2, verse number 1. This is in the section of Proverbs chapters 1 through 9, which talks about the fatherly instructions or fatherly wisdom and advice. We see that here with the way this is stated. My son, Proverbs chapter 2 and verse number 1. If you accept my words and store up my commands within you, listening closely to wisdom and directing your heart to understanding. Furthermore, if you call out to insight and lift your voice to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure, then, verse number 5, you will understand the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up success for the upright. He is a shield for those who live with integrity, so that he may guard the paths of justice and protect the way of his faithful followers. Verse number 9, the second then section. Then you will understand righteousness, justice, and integrity. Every good path for wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will delight you. Discretion will watch over you, and understanding will guard you. It will rescue you from the way of evil, from anyone who says perverse things, from those who abandon the right paths to walk in the ways of darkness, from those who enjoy doing evil and celebrate perversion, whose paths are crooked and whose ways are devious. It will rescue you from a forbidden woman, from a wayward woman with her flattering talk, who abandons the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her ways the land of the departed spirits. None return who go to her. None reach the paths of life. So follow the way of the good. This is the conclusion, beginning verse number 20. So follow the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those of integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous ripped out of it. And that is Proverbs chapter 2. Again, looking at these 4 conditional statements, I guess it's 3 specific ifs, but 4 verses that cover this. Number 1, if you accept my words and store my commands. And then 3, and I guess verse 2, listening closely to wisdom and directing your heart. So that would tie into chapter 1. And then in verse number 3, if you call out to insight and lift your voice in understanding. And then finally, verse number 4, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure. So number 1, if you accept my words, if you're willing to listen to someone else, if you're willing to listen to the wisdom and knowledge of another. Number 2, if you desire to have this insight and understanding, if you call out, if you want it, that's good. Then number 4, are you willing to put in the effort to seek it and to search for it and to find it? So there's got to be a willingness list. There's got to be humility. There's got to be desire, and there has to be effort as well. There must be humility, desire, and effort. Unless we have these things, Solomon is going to say, you cannot experience the benefits that are going to pop up beginning in verse number 5. So if you do this, if you have humility, desire, and effort, then you will understand the fear of the Lord. Remember, going back to chapter 1 and verse number 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So that's a very prominent idea here, is that if you have this fear of the Lord, then you can understand. So then you will understand the fear of the Lord, and in doing so, you'll discover the knowledge of God. Why is this important? Well, it's important because the fear of the Lord recognizes that the Lord is the one who grants these things. It is the Lord who has knowledge, and therefore he has the ability to give knowledge. We need to fear the Lord, respect the Lord, recognize that what we need comes only from him. He stores up success for the upright. He shields those. He guards the paths, protects the way. He does all this. Again, we've got to recognize that if we will do these things, then God will work with us. God will be with us, and God will bless us. Well, verse number 9, in doing all this, then you will understand righteousness, justice, and integrity. Righteousness, justice, and integrity. So we've talked about righteousness somewhat recently, talking about righteousness, having that proper right relationship between us and God and us and other people, that we be a just people, that we are fair and right in the way that we deal with others, and we uphold those things that are good and denounce those things that are wrong. And then we have integrity about us, that people can trust us. We're a trustworthy type of people. If we do these things, if we have that humility, if we have that desire, we have that effort, then God will be with us, and he will grant us understanding in these things, righteousness, justice, and integrity. But there will be very practical results of this. Number 1, in verse number 10, wisdom will enter your heart. Also in verse number 10, knowledge will delight you. Discretion, verse 11, will watch over you. And as well in verse number 11, understanding will guard you. So there is going to be wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding that will be made available to us, that will help us to do the right thing and to make good decisions. It will rescue you from the way of evil, from anyone who says perverse things, from those who abandon the right paths to walk in the way of darkness, those who enjoy doing evil, celebrate perversion, those whose ways are devious. So if you have wisdom, knowledge, discretion, understanding, then the pathway that they walk, those others who are described here in verses 12 through 15, you won't walk with them. And if you think about this particular path, I go back to chapter 1 as well, and thinking about the path of the violent person, just the disorder and the chaos and the turmoil that defines that type of lifestyle. Solomon's saying, if you have wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding, then you won't walk on that path, and you won't suffer as they suffer. But here's something specific that's mentioned here, and it's not only mentioned here in chapter 2, but this idea of the forbidden woman is also mentioned in chapter 5, and let's see here, in chapter 6, and I think chapter 7. So again, if you're thinking about this being fatherly wisdom to sons especially, although I think the principles would apply to any person, but specifically to sons, having wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding will help, specifically for Solomon, his son, someone in that position, to be rescued from the forbidden woman, the wayward woman, the one who seduces, the one who doesn't care about the covenant of her God, the one whose house is going to lead to ruin. You will avoid that, and just think about how many stories we know of those who have gotten caught up with the wrong type of woman, or women getting caught up with the wrong type of man, and the just absolute heartache that comes with joining oneself to that type of person. It's never good. And we would have to say then that those who willingly would join themselves in a relationship like that, they are lacking in wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding. Can we say that that type of person has humbled himself or herself before the knowledge of others? Is there a desire for knowledge? Is there an effort to obtain knowledge and wisdom and understanding? More than likely not. So we're thinking about this then. If we have that humility to pursue what is right, to pursue the wise words here, or if we have the desire for these wise words, if we have the effort to put in these wise words, then God will be with us. We will have things that can help us to just practically live better lives that glorify God. And the conclusion being this: do it. Verse number 20, so follow the way of the good. keep the paths of the righteous, for the upright will inhabit the land, and those of integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous ripped out of it. So therefore, those who do not have that humility to listen to wisdom, don't have a desire for wisdom, they don't put in the effort to gain wisdom, they will be cut off from the land. They will be ripped out of the land. They will not prosper. But those who do humble themselves before wisdom, desire wisdom, and put forth the effort to pursue wisdom, God will be with them. They will have these good attributes: wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding. And that will allow them to walk on the way of good, on the way of the good, and to keep to the paths of the righteous, to inhabit the land and remain in it. Again, that's a little different from us, because we're not talking about the land of Canaan, as Solomon would have been referring to here. But if we think about the land just being a part of people of God, then that remains true for us as well. If we humble ourselves before wisdom, desire wisdom, pursue wisdom with great effort, that will please God. He will grant us those things. He will grant us wisdom, knowledge, discretion, and understanding, and we will be blessed in that way. It reminds me a lot of James, which some people have referred to James as kind of the Proverbs of the New Testament. It is the wisdom literature of the New Testament. Think about what James says right there of the beginning of the book, that if someone desires wisdom, let him ask of God, and God will give it. That's what we see here. For the person who humbly listens, desires that wisdom, pursues with effort that wisdom, we have zero reason to believe that God will not grant that person that wisdom. So may that be our pursuit. May we humble ourselves before the wisdom of this text specifically, as we're reading through this text over the next few weeks. May we specifically humble ourselves before this wisdom. May we desire this wisdom, and may we then pursue with great effort to obtain this wisdom. If we do that, I feel very confident that God will bless us, and we will simply be better off for it. Thank you so much for tuning into this reading on this Friday. Hope that you have a great rest of your Friday. We'll be back at it again in the morning as we read together from Proverbs chapter 3, which I believe Proverbs chapter 3, maybe not chapter 3. It's one of these chapters coming up is going to have some very familiar sayings to us, some sayings that we just quote from time to time. They've been etched into our hearts as being good things to remember. So you'll probably see that over the next 2 or 3 chapters, just these one-liners that you've heard a lot. You're going to see exactly where they are here within the writing of the Proverbs. But again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone.